Wait. Good evening. Welcome to the Midcoast Community Council meeting of January 8th, 2014. Hey, council member self-introductions.
Dave Olson.
Joel Janelle.
Dan Haggerty.
Lisa Ketchum.
Laura Stein.
Chris Johnson.
Aaron Deinzer.
Thank you. First, item 1, we have Board of Supervisors and reports from other government officials, and since Nicholas isn't here yet, we have Captain Mike Maskerik from CHP.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. First of all, it's always a pleasure to be here and to be able to address the community and the concerns that they have. I'm very pleased to report back tonight that we've had some significant improvements on the Sunshine Valley Road speeding problem that has been addressed over the past several months. In conjunction with the San Mateo County Department of Public Works, we've been able to have striping put down the center of the roadway. We've also had electronic speed signs installed, and we've been doing some very visible enforcement, the CHP in that area, with the hopes of being able to lower the speed limit threshold. There's an active survey that's going on right now, and we're very confident that the numbers that will be reported moving forward will assist in trying to get that speed limit, justifying what the speed limit is or lowering the speed limit. Unfortunately, what we were confronted with when we looked at this several months ago is that the speed surveys were not supportive of the posted speed limit. In fact, we would have to consider raising the speed limits, which certainly no one wanted to do. So in conjunction with the efforts of the Public Works Department and the Highway Patrol and the Sheriff's Office, we've really been able to establish a collaborative effort to not only improve safety, but to have some very significant efforts moving forward to reduce speed and other dangerous driving behaviors in that area. So the survey will really be the barometer of the success in that regard as to what the speed will be able to be put forth, either justified what it's posted at right now, or I can't say, we'd see it to being lowered, but certainly there's certain portions of the road where the advisory speed would want to be less. We were looking at some very significant speeds over the past several months that clearly were problematic to us and to many of the residents who live along or near Sunshine Valley Road. So in that regard, I'm very pleased with the process and the progress we've made in that capacity. Day after Christmas, we had a very tragic, fatal collision that took place down by Pescadero. It was a motorcycle fatality. It's still under investigation. I can't speak specifically to the details of that crash, but again, we've really put forth an effort to have a very high visibility and a high presence from a law enforcement perspective in this area so that we can reduce those types of tragedies from occurring. That's all I have to report out. If there's any questions from either the board or members of the community, I'd be glad to entertain those at this time.
Questions, anyone?
All right.
No questions, so thanks.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll postpone Nicholas's report and move on to item number 2, public comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak on an item not on the agenda? Leonard.
Good evening, council members. For those who weren't at the Board of Supervisors ceremony last night, watch it on television. It had a lot of the flavor of one of those roasts that certain organizations do. I got there late and missed a lot of it because the address they gave isn't in my car's GPS.
Do any council members have public announcements? Laura?
Once again, Coastside Design Review has 2 openings. One is for an alternate for Montera, and the other is for an at-large, I apologize, not an architect for Montera, a alternate and an architect for at-large, which we shared between the Bayside and the Coastside. So if you know of anybody, they can certainly contact me, or they can go on to the San Mateo County website to find more details. It would be on the boards and commissions.
I have a couple of announcements. Changes in the Samtrans Midcoast bus service will go into effect January 26th. Route 294 will no longer run through the Midcoast. You'll have to pick it up in Half Moon Bay. Route 17 will operate between Half Moon Bay and Pacifica every hour on weekdays and every 2 hours on weekends. Our website has a link to more detailed schedules. The other item is parks will be the theme for the January 22nd MCC meeting. And I've been working on getting a special venue for that. The meeting we had of this sort last April was a big success, so we need a larger venue. The new county parks director will be introduced, and we'll also have an update from GGNRA. Christina Carey will come. So just wanted to give you a little forewarning on that, get the word out. Okay, agenda item 3. Are there any requested changes to the agenda? Seeing none,
None.
may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Question? Can I ask
Yes.
a question? So in approving this consent agenda, we're approving the memo to Public Works regarding the unsafe condition at narrow mid-block section?
Right. Did you want to discuss that?
I did have some questions about that, yeah.
All right, well, just to back up a second, when we get to this item and I ask if anyone wants to make any changes to the agenda, at that point you'd say, I'd like to pull that item off consent, and then we will place it elsewhere. So would you like to
Yeah, I would like
redo
to.
that?
Yes, please.
All right, we could do that. We'll put that at the end of the agenda.
Okay.
So that was just an approval for the minutes for now. Remind me to come back to that. All right, so agenda item 4A, Postal Service Protection Act, U.S. Senate Bill 316. Bridget O'Farrell of Moss Beach asked if we could agendize this issue, and she will make the presentation at the podium. Staff, in this case, Chris Johnson and I, have submitted a draft letter for the council's consideration. Bridget?
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, board members. I'm pleased to be here to talk about the Postal Service Protection Act. I am not an expert on postal service reform, which is a whole world unto itself, but I do study labor relations issues and the importance of citizen involvement. The Postal Service is a 200-year-old institution that employs over 500,000 people living and working in our communities. Moss Beach, Montera, El Granada, Half Moon Bay, Pescadero, we all have post offices and we all have mail delivery. There is no taxpayer support for the second largest civilian labor force in the country. And that labor force is 40% minority, 40% women, and 22% veterans, many of whom have disabilities. Yet the post office must go through the U.S. Congress for very basic business decisions. And by an act of Congress in 2006, it is required to prepay health benefits for 75 years, requiring a payment of $5.5 billion annually for 10 years. No other public or private organization in the country has such a crippling financial requirement. If it were not for this requirement and the overfunding of retirement programs by over $50 billion, the post office would be making a small profit. Yet the headlines you often see is how they are going broke and they have not paid their recent debts. The Postal Service has downsized, consolidated, and innovated new products. First-class mail is down, but package delivery is increasing. FedEx and UPS are two of the largest customers of the post office because they don't deliver to all of the small places that the post office delivers to. And the post office delivers to those locations which have many of the most vulnerable customers, low income, the elderly, the sick, and in rural communities. I'm asking, and had spoken with Lisa about this, to have the MCC write to the San Mateo Board of Supervisors in your role as advisors to that board and ask them to support a resolution requesting that Senator Feinstein and Senator Boxer support Senate Bill 316, the Postal Service Protection Act, which will solve these problems, particularly the problem of stabilizing the finances, as well as protecting the mail processing, retail and last mile delivery networks, and retaining door-to-door delivery. This includes the Saturday delivery option, and it also has become more important recently due to the increasing voting by mail, so that the mail service is even more important to our democratic process than it was before. There is a companion bill, H.R. 630, in the U.S. House of Representatives, and that already has the support of Congresswoman Spear. This is federal legislation, which most local community agencies don't address, but it affects post offices and postal workers on the coast side directly. Congress has caused the fiscal problem that the post office now faces, and Congress can solve the problem. And they need to hear from us. So every opportunity I get, I not only ask an organization like this to support this legislation, but ask individuals to write to Senators Boxer and Feinstein to also support this legislation. There is no agenda at this point of when the legislation might come up in the Congress, but the co-sponsors are now seeking to get more supporters because the issue of the Postal Service, and there are competing legislative proposals out there, many of which I think would do more damage than they would do good. So I know that Lisa and others of you drafted a letter. The Board of Supervisors has received a request to pass a resolution asking Feinstein and Boxer to sign on to this. This is the one thing we can do right now that can help make a difference in the long term to get this legislation through the Congress. It's also equally important in this time of economic slow recovery, where we're talking about these are decent jobs in our community and not doing anything that would eliminate jobs when we have these good jobs. So I would ask your support to write to the Board of Supervisors advising them to support contacting Feinstein and Boxer. I'd be happy to, if I can answer your questions, I would be happy to.
Do any council members have questions for Bridget?
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually do. I was just looking at the draft letter, and so I was a little. I just wanted a little bit of clarification on the stabilize USPS finances by reforming future retiree health financing policies. Can you kind of just explain to me basically what that would?
That is basically to eliminate this requirement that they pay health insurance benefits out 75 years. It doesn't mean that there would be fewer health retirement benefits for workers. It means that they would address, and I believe the legislation very specifically ends that process of requiring them to pay it out 75 years. That's specifically what that's referring to.
Okay.
Thank you, Bridget, for working so hard on this and bringing it to us.
Well, it is a local issue, and I appreciate your being willing to have it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Nicholas, did you want
Yeah, if I
to
could
speak
just
to this?
apologize for showing up late. Bridget, it's nice to kind of get to meet you. We've talked on the phone a couple times. So just so everyone knows, so our the county's federal lobbyists are doing a full analysis of this legislation, at which time, at a time which is completed, a presentation will be given to the Board of Supervisors for them to hear and determine if the board is in support or not. So I can let everyone know at what point in time that will be. We're still waiting for the analysis from our federal lobbyists.
Thank you. Public comment. I have a speaker slip from Leonard Warren.
Good evening. There's a number of aspects of this that I have a problem with. The only justification that I've really heard for keeping Saturday delivery is to protect jobs. But when you have an organization in trouble, you have two choices. You either protect the jobs and let the organization eventually bite the dust, which is where the post office is headed, or you have to bite the bullet and cut the jobs to what you can support. And I think that 5-day delivery is all that we really need. Half a century ago, mail was delivered twice a day. How many people here know that? Nobody, okay. It was in fact delivered twice a day, half a century ago. And we've gotten along just fine with that 50% cut in service. So I think that we can go to 5-day-a-week delivery. And I also take exception to a statement that on the face of it sounded like an axiom, that we all have mail delivery. No, we don't. You live in Moss Beach. We do not have mail delivery in El Granada. Sorry.
You can get it if you want it.
Through Half Moon Bay, using a Half Moon Bay address, and I've tried 3 or 4 times in the 20 years I've lived here, and they will not call me back to discuss the requirements. They just will not call back. Do I want to get mail delivery from an organization that can't even be bothered returning a call from a potential customer? No, I don't. I'm perfectly happy with the post office box here. I think going to the post office to pick up your mail is actually good for a small community to have that gathering point, especially as an elected official where people come up to me in the post office, hi. So I really think that some of the elements here are appropriate. One of the public at large does not support the Postal Service. And I'll throw out one reason why I think that's true, and that is the gross subsidy that the post office gives to junk mail that people don't want. If they're short on income, they need to jack up the price of junk mail to what it really costs to deliver it, instead of having first-class subsidized junk mail. This is exactly backwards. And, until that's fixed, I will not support the post office, period, until they fix the problem of junk mails being subsidized. So I don't support the legislation as proposed.
Thank you, Leonard. Bill Kehoe?
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. And also thank you, Bridget, for bringing this up and making me aware of it. I'm glad I met you on the trail the other day. I fully support the letter that you have and in keeping the post office open. I think Bridget just slightly touched on some of the really kind of deep-seated politics that are going on with this bill. And to answer Aaron's question, the retirement benefit being paid out 75 years is only to the United States Postal Service. Most other government quasi-agencies like that have a 20 to 30 years. So they more than doubled it under George Bush as a means of driving the cost up so that they could then play this game that they're losing money. The money they actually lose is paying out this benefit that they may or may not really need the full amounts out there. In fact, they turn a profit of hundreds of millions of dollars a year off of their mail service. So she also mentioned, I think, Amazon and other people are subcontracting, which is actually increasing their revenues even while we were having a depression since 2008. So I do strongly support this. As she said, the big thing is it does present local jobs, but some other things is that everybody thinks the internet, this is one of the other fallacies being pushed by Dale Issa and a few other right-wing nuts of the Congress out there, that the internet is supplanting mail. And it's not true. There's hundreds of millions of pieces of mail handled a day by the Postal Service. And even close competitors like UPS and FedEx, they don't really handle first-class mail, and if they do, it'll cost you 46 cents to send across town or across the country, cost you $5 and up to send another way. This was by a private carrier. So this idea of privatization is really just another one of these, scams by corporate America, paying off political hacks to have them go to private organizations so that they can just raise the rates on everyone. People who are the most hurt by this are low-income folks, seniors who get their medicine through the mail. A lot of people get home delivery or mail delivery of the regular prescription drugs. I know I've been for years. It saves you having a small businessman having to jump in the car during the business day to drive down to where Half Moon Bay or Pacifica if they shut down all the post office. So and that will add to our Highway 1 traffic problem too, which is just another local issue. So there's a whole bunch of things that on the surface, I guess if you look to see who's lining up for it and who's lining up against it, and you start to see the likes of ISA and people like that, and you're known by the company that you keep, I think most of you would agree that you should keep the Postal Service there. It's also the only thing that was actually, federal office that was actually put in the original Constitution, was the Postal Service. So, again, I support it. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, council members.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone, any other public comment? Okay, I'll close the public comment, and would council members like to discuss this? We have a draft letter here. Do we have a motion? Do you have any thoughts you want to?
I wanted to mention a couple thoughts. So I was talking to a couple people in the community about this issue over the weekend and got a couple different reactions. One was, what does this have to do with us, other than, you know, maybe a couple of jobs and what? So there's this feeling of like, why is the MCC dipping its toe in federal issues? I know that there was some flack about the healthcare, us talking about healthcare and the Patriot Act years ago, and so that was a question that a member of the community had. What is this to us? But as I discussed this with some other community members, expressing my feeling on it and hearing theirs, I think beyond the facts that Bridget has presented us, which are readily available and clearly obvious about why the post office is in the perceived trouble that it's in, I think if we're gonna dip our toe in here, I'd like to see a connection made to the local level here. And to me, the semi-rural Midcoast, important intangible here is that the post office is one of the institutions in this country. I mean, it's interesting that Bill mentioned it was in the original Constitution, is one of the things that make up the fabric of this country, in the sense that there's a post office in every, you know, two-bit town across the United States. And in a lot of cases, that's what makes it a town. I grew up in a small town. I now live in a small town. Leonard mentioned it himself. You know, it's a gathering place. It's a source of pride. It's a source of identity. It gives El Granada a similar standing to New York or San Francisco. They have post offices. We have a post office. We have a federal office in El Granada. It gives us some modicum of representation, some participation in the national scene. We're part of that, and to me, the post office makes it part of that. In addition to the fact that it delivers the mail, it keeps us connected with information and with our families and friends and other things that we need to get through the mail. I'm not going to get into the details of what's wrong with the legislation and the pre-funding mandate and all the things that are causing the problem, but I just think if we want to connect with the coast side on this, we need to bring it, you know, they say all politics is local. Well, this is, in my opinion, one of the things that makes this important on a local level. Moss Beach has a post office, Montera has a post office, El Granada has a post office, and those are the like centers of those three communities. And I cannot think, I just do not believe that any private institution that doesn't have the reach, scope, or mandate of the federal government would provide equal service or reinforce the community feeling that the Postal Service and the individual post office provide. So in my opinion, the connection of the MCC, one of the connections of the MCC to this issue is the fact that I think our communities would be hurt if any of those three post offices I mentioned went away, let alone all of them. And I think it's a slippery slope. If they start closing down post offices, we're going to get left with the Half Moon Bay post office. As that's the way I see it. I mean, why would we have three post offices? We're shutting stuff down. We don't need these little post offices. They don't do anything. That's what I'm worried about. To me, that's the local representation that we get that makes having a post office in a place like El Granada important. And while we're talking about higher level things here, if once that string is pulled, it's going to be a fast run downhill, and we're going to start, pieces of communities are going to start to disappear, and then they've got jobs and other things. I just want to say that it's an intangible for me as to why this Postal Protection Act is important. And it may only be item number 6 on the fact sheet or whatever, but closing of rural post offices is, I think, something that will hurt this country, the country as a whole, not to mention the coast side. So that's what I have to say about it.
Anybody else? Laura?
Well, in line with what you're saying, I can remember back when I first moved here and the real estate agent was showing us homes, and there was a big emphasis on meeting at your local post office, because when people come from elsewhere, they're used to their mail being delivered to their house, and the social impacts of having the local post office, which is definitely true. On the other side, I believe it was in one of the links on our website, and they talked about the post office being a service of a democracy, and it is not a business. And I think that a lot of the discussions I've heard are trying to compare it to being run like a business, and which ties it back to being a service of a democracy and why that's important. In reference to Leonard's comment about people not having any faith in the post office, and I don't have time to look up the exact quote, but I did see someplace where they actually did study to find out how people felt, and it was well over 50% found the post office to be the most trustworthy, as opposed to the other businesses. So with that in mind, I definitely support the Postal Service Protection Act.
Anybody else? We have a motion. Oh, Dave?
I just wanted to say that the new procedures for closing post offices is probably more important to me than the health aspects. The funding part, that is obviously important. We did just go through a round of post office closings, and we're certainly looking at more of those being closed, so this new process seems quite important to me.
I wanted to find out, what exactly is the bill supposed to be voted on?
By Congress or by?
By Congress.
The Senate site doesn't list a date.
think there's
It was
no
not-
agenda?
It hasn't, I don't think it's been
It's not
determined.
out of committee yet.
Yeah, it was last read on, in February of 2013 on the Senate floor.
So, I mean, are we looking at like a year's worth of considerations, or 2 months, or?
We don't know. There are other bills also being proposed, and it's just, we don't know.
Like conflicting bills that would basically address the same issues, but, oh, so we may adopt this one but not that one, that's kind of the situation.
Just, it's my understanding that the post office is actually handling their own, they're doing fine. It's just getting this burden off their back of this mandate. And so, that mandate is the cause that's given perception to people that, oh no, US Postal Service, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to run their business, and it's just not true. It's a misleading.
Just 2 points of clarification. One is that this legislation does have new procedures for if you're going to consider shutting down a post office, how that process works, which would be, would be considered much fairer and based on the needs of the community. And I think that you're absolutely correct that if they start looking at more post offices closing, the fact that we have Half Moon Bay, El Granada, Moss Beach, and Montera, I can't imagine that they would all, and under this new process, the importance to the community would be a much higher factor in that. The other point was that,
You can sit down and I'll come back to you.
I'm sure the minute I sit down.
That's what I walk back into the other room and.
But while this mandate is the most, critical factor, it's a Saturday delivery. I personally don't need Saturday delivery. Many of us don't. But people who get medicine, small businesses, do need Saturday delivery, and it can't be based on what my personal need is. And that it's very interesting that the post office is just contracted with, and in Southern California, they're doing this with Amazon to do Sunday deliveries, because the delivery of packages, because of the internet sales, has gone up so dramatically. And my one personal stake in all of this, I do have a sister-in-law who's a letter carrier in Southern California. and they're calling in more people to work to do this. There's the volume of Sunday deliveries is really increasing at a rapid rate at this point. So I think that this can't be based on any individuals. It has to be based on, you know, a systematic assessment of the business. And it is also quite true that without this mandate and the fact that they overpaid somehow, I don't quite understand how, this $50 billion in retirement payments, which they can't get back. If they got that back as well, they would be running at a small profit. And they are not supposed to be. They are a service institution. They're not a private corporation, so they're not supposed to be making a huge profit for stockholders. So yes, they would be doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing without these two financial constraints on them.
Just, I wanted to kind of see if I can make a parallel with this. Like, I don't know the official term for it, but you work for some employers and you can prepay into a healthcare fund, right? But it's use it or lose it. Is this kind of the same situation with the Postal Service, or is it a different situation where
the money is just going in there and they have no access to it? It just sits there.
This is similar to pension liabilities, but it's healthcare liabilities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I do not have any information, and I don't know if the Board of Supervisors will get any information as to why neither Feinstein or Boxer have signed on to this legislation. As I said, Congresswoman Spear has, Congresswoman Eshoo has, on the House side. I have gotten no response. I don't know why, and my guess is part of it anyway has to do that they haven't heard from, there are many other things on their plate, and they haven't heard from citizens on this one.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Thank you, Bridget. That reminds me, thank you for bringing that up about the note. One of the provisions of the Postal Protection Act would be that any community in which a post office is going to be closed, an announcement would have to be posted that it's being considered. The specific reasons for closing that post office would also have to be listed, and one of those reasons cannot be that it's not turning a profit. So again, to me, those are three critical things that are important to us specifically here on the coast side. One, if it's posted that the Moss Beach post office is going to be closed, I bet we're going to have some people that want to have a discussion about it or want to have some input. They're going to want to make a comment on that, and then we'll find out for sure, you know, where people stand on the post office. The listing the specific reasons, and one of those reasons can't be turn a profit. I mean, to me, that protects rural and semi-rural America right there.
I'd like to make a motion
Please.
to approve the letter as drafted.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, passed. Okay.
Does anyone have a copy of the agenda?
Yes.
Should you CC the Board of Supervisors on this as well?
It's to the Board of Supervisors.
It's to them.
Oh. I got it.
All right. Okay, so now we're going back to agenda item 1, the Board of Supervisors report. Nicholas Calderon, Legislative Aide for Supervisor Orsley.
Thank you very much. Once again, I apologize for being late. I do have a semi-legitimate reason. I was working on the grant application to the Transportation Authority for Measure A funds to conduct the planning and permitting of the parallel trail, our first segment. So I was working on that. And I hate when that happens. No, but I do that. I do that all the time. I'm like, God, I should have known. Yeah. So I was working on that. I've been working with someone else from the county, and we've been shooting drafts back and forth. The ball had been in my court too long, so I had to get it out before I left for this meeting. So I apologize. But that grant application is going very well so far. It's due a week from Friday. We've gathered a lot of support, not just from our state delegations, but from the MCC, from the Cabrillo Unified School District, Chamber of Commerce, and several others as well. So we're very excited about our opportunities for this, and looking forward to hopefully being successful in this grant. Secondly, back in December, I was supposed to provide a update to the Midcoast Community Council on behalf of Captain Mike Maskerich. I did not see the email until after the meeting. I had left early, and so.
He was here tonight.
Oh, did he give an update?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I'm not gonna.
About Sunshine Valley Road?
So in that case, I'm not going to give you guys the update from Captain Mike Maskerich, because apparently he's already done it.
We can see if they match up.
Yeah, we can fact check you now.
I would probably just go with whatever he said. That's probably your best bet. Great. So secondly,
We do want to thank the Department of Public Works, though, for getting that straight.
I will let them know. I will let them know.
And Mike, Supervisor Mike, because he has really been a driving force behind this for the last several months.
Captain Mike? Yeah, he's Captain Mike's, Captain Maskerich is awesome. He's a great guy. New president of the board, so Supervisor Dave Pine is the president of the Board of Supervisors this year, and that happened last night. So I'm happy to report out on that. Supervisor Horsley enjoyed his year as president and was successful in accomplishing a lot of his goals. And so he was happy to hand the gavel over to Supervisor Pine, and is positive that Supervisor Pine will do a great job as well. Next MCC meeting, our Parks Department will be coming out. Did you say this right?
Chris, you got anything new
Just gonna
about
stop
that?
there then. No. Other than the fact that we're all looking forward to it, we're excited. It's been we didn't realize it had been several months. I apologize. I always look at them. I should be looking at you guys. It had been several months since the last time Parks came out to the meeting.
Since April.
Several months. Far too long, and so we're looking forward to this. We have a new Parks Director, Marlene Finley, and so far it has been phenomenal working with her. I call her up, I ask her for something, and she gets it done before I can hang the phone up. So it's really been a treat, and I think Marlene's going to be great for the Parks Department. The last couple of years, the supervisors have really been trying to put more focus on our county parks and bringing them up to the standard that they should be. And she's a great addition to the team, and we're looking forward to the opening of the Devil's Slide Trail. We're looking forward to the upgrades that will be done to the other county parks, and definitely looking forward to the next meeting when she can come out and meet everyone. So I definitely encourage anyone who's interested in county parks, Devil's Slide Trail, please come to the next meeting and get some great information. Lastly, there was a recent video that was posted online regarding readings of level of radioactivity. What was said to be Surfers Beach, however, the coordinates that were given were in Pacifica, so I'm not sure. Either way, they're both San Mateo County coast side. And I just want to reiterate what has been said in the Half Moon Bay Review by our Environmental Health Department, what has been said by the state, which is that although the readings were higher than normal, they are not, they are in no way, shape, or form at the point where it's a threat for public safety. We are confident in our assessment of the situation. We followed all protocols. The environmental health went out, did a reading of the water, called the state. They came down, they also did a reading, and once again, it was determined that the water levels are okay and are not a threat to public safety. Both sodium and potassium, both natural byproducts of the ocean, will register on the meter that was used, and we are all also confident in saying that that there is no link between the Fukushima incident and the recent video that came out. So we are confident in all of that, and don't want people to be alarmed. Yes.
The recent video, are you referring to like the sea stars literally losing their exoskeletons or something else?
This was the YouTube video of the Geiger counter.
Yeah, there was a gentleman who took a video with his phone and a meter, and it was about a 6-minute video online. You can see it on the Half Moon Bay Review, and it sparked some concerns at the beginning, but I think quickly it came to be determined that it was not a threat, and I'm just here to report that that's true, that everyone is okay, and there's no reason to be alarmed.
just not really a question, but there was some follow-up. A local citizen who works on manufacturing Geiger counters did some measurements and sent some samples out to his company, and the readings are particularly high on some of the bands of dark sands. So it's not apparently coming from the water. Where it's coming from remains to be determined, but definitely not cesium from Fukushima.
Right. And just to tag on to that, certain types of watches can set these meters off. Those eating utensils that are painted red will set these meters off. So there's a lot of things that will register with these meters that are in fact not hazardous to your health.
To add to that, I mean, I don't know, I did see the video, and I don't know what the baseline is. I mean, I don't know if this guy, did he do a Geiger counter survey before Fukushima? So, you know, what are we basing that, you know, these levels against? But also, it may not be known that the Farallones were a dumping ground for radioactive materials from the 100 Point Naval Station for about 40 years. They don't even know exactly what is all there. And there is also an aircraft carrier that was towed from the South Pacific after it was used for target practice for nuclear weapons. And it is full of barrels, and it is sitting out there underneath the Farallon. So my guess would be that if there's radioactivity, it's been there all along for the last 40 years, and that's where it's coming from.
Other than that, just happy to be out here with you guys. Happy New Year's to everyone. Happy New Year's. Looking forward to an exciting and fun 2014. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nicholas. So I think we're on agenda item 4B now, which is color of tactile paving at pedestrian curb ramps. Dan and I are sponsoring this item, and we've submitted a letter for council consideration asking, well, actually it's just a memo to the Public Works Director requesting contrasting shades of gray or brown instead of yellow for these paths.
Yes.
You got it.
Thank you.
Working before, there we go. It's coming to life now. Okay, so I just wanted to have some pictures and just kind of bring up what was recently, I reported last year, right out here on our street, this two block stretch, that there were some, these pads were put in. I think there's a total of 4 or 6 in El Granada, and then I think 1 in Moss Beach. This particular one was cast in place, and I got from the Department of Public Works that it's kind of a complicated law. There was an existing handicap ramp there, but the slope was off a degree or so, so they had to redo the concrete. That one particularly got in place. Now these other two were just kind of glued onto the existing concrete. This one's across from the post office, and this one's right out in front here. After, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of the color. I kind of think they take away from the beauty, and so I did a little investigation. I found out that there are other color options. This is right in front of the San Benito House, Main Street. A gray pad. In fact, all of Main Street, Half Moon Bay, has these gray pads, and they, interestingly learned that the FDA, or not the FDA, sorry, wrong issue.
The FBI?
The federal ADA requirement only concerns with the contrast and not coloring. So as you can see, there's a contrast of the dark gray next to the light gray. That's what the ADA requirement is at the federal level, 705.1.3. So they just want to have a contrast of at least 70%. There's also some at the College of San Mateo, and there are see where else. There's Stevens Creek Road in San Jose also has these. So we all know the yellow ones because they just kind of stand out and they go, oh, there's another one. But you don't really notice these. And they are completely, you know, they serve the purpose. Red, they also come in red. Now, sometimes they get installed as they're not really intended to because of other situations. And, you know, I don't know, taxpayers are paying for that work, and I just don't think it looks very, you know, I think something else could have happened. And to have to look at that for a long time is just kind of a little bit unacceptable for me. Now, I just wanted to show this. This is like an example of what I think is, you know, extreme beauty in a crosswalk. This is in West Portal Avenue, San Francisco. I grew up in this area, so there's architectural gems all around it. And for some reason, you know, this still stands. They don't have an ADA pad there. Not sure why. Maybe it's because of, you know, hey, nobody has a heart to destroy such beauty. And interesting, you know, this inlaid brickwork is interesting because we also have it right here on Capistrano Road. Most people probably didn't even notice it or recognize it, but I think it was in the 80s that all of Capistrano Road had this beautiful sidewalk work done. And then when the hotel came in, I'm not quite sure why, but I think the areas in front of the hotel, because it was reworked, for some reason, they didn't have to match the existing. And so that's why it's not like this in front of the hotel. So, you know, we just kind of through studying this a little bit and finding out that there's other options, more aesthetically appealing and more important to me, less of a takeaway of the rural feeling that we have here. I think that they do take away. So thought it would be appropriate to ask the Department of Public Works if they would consider another option, other colors. Hopefully, you know, we won't lose a lot of this look. So we have a draft letter, and
You done?
yes. Happy to take your question.
Council members have questions for Dan?
Yes. So DPW put these in? The ones that?
Yes.
The yellow ones?
Yes, the county, San Diego County Department of Public Works.
Oh, could I add something to that? Caltrans is in charge of any of these that are within their right-of-way. And you may have noticed along the Naomi Patridge Trail in Half Moon Bay, they've put in some of these tactile paving things, and they're yellow. And Caltrans, for whatever reason I do not know, has adopted a yellow color standard.
Right.
And that's explained in the letter, the question actually, as to, we don't know if the county has adopted a standard like this, and if they have, that would be a shame. But basically, this memo is just sort of opening the topic with Public Works to see, and we're not asking to retrofit stuff, we're just saying, you know, could we look at this?
Do we know why, so are these ones right here? This isn't Caltrans right away, is it?
No.
So do we know why yellow was chosen?
We don't.
Did they have a bunch of yellow and nobody else
Because
wanted
nothing
it?
other than yellow was asked for, I believe.
Okay.
It's essentially the
Hopefully, from the letter, from the memo, we would get an answer as to why it's been chosen. And
But we
whether
didn't
they-
ask that question in this letter.
Well, we're asking if future paving could be in these other colors, and so the answer will be yes.
You hope,
Or
you
no.
hope, but we didn't ask that question, so if I was somebody who didn't want to answer that question, I would just say, would it be possible for the future? Yeah, sure. with no, like, why do we have yellow now?
Well, we've got Jim Porter's email address, so we can follow up.
When will the yellow be removed?
We're
Well,
not
this is
asking-
addressing
we're not
only the
asking for
future,
that.
not existing, correct?
Yeah, they were just installed, they're not gonna go.
So, to that though,
Well,
Dan,
they have already changed some that were on the Naomi Patrick's Trail. They actually jackhammered them all
Oh,
out,
they redid a bunch of them.
and they redid them, so
That was where they did the grade wrong, I think.
I think you're right, yeah.
wait, I'm sorry, 2 more questions. Okay, so, do we have a list of proposed future installs? You know, do we know that there's gonna be some in the future that we could get ahead of the game on
No,
this? And
we have no information from DPW on this.
okay, and then the last question, sorry for the question. But if we have yellow all right now and we start putting in brown or gray or something, to your comment about the visual aesthetics, thank you. With that, now we've got like a patchwork quilt of brown here and gray there and yellow there. Would that be more visually displeasing than the yellow? Just throwing it, I'm just asking, like, you know,
What do you
what your thoughts on.
What do you think?
Me, personally, like, it's there, I'm fine with yellow, but I understand that, and I talked to some people in the community, and again, it was like 51-49, some people were like, oh gosh, yellow, that's so glaring. Other people were saying, yeah, I know exactly where they are, they're easy to see, you know, everybody knows where they are. So I don't know that that really helped at all, but I was thinking, like, if we have one on one corner that's yellow, and then at the next corner, that at a future install, it goes in as gray, and then down the street we have another yellow, we get kind of a patchwork quilt thing going.
Well, they have it in Half Moon Bay. They have it in other areas, and no one, really, I think the thing is you just notice the new ones less. They don't, so you don't even notice.
For the people for whom it's intended,
Right.
those who are very visually impaired,
Doesn't matter.
they may not be able to tell the difference, it's just a visual contrast.
It's interesting that the curb ramps were put in for wheelchairs, but then that did away with the actual curb, which had been an indicator for visually impaired people with their canes to know where they were gonna step into the street. And once the ramp was put in, they didn't have that indicator anymore, and hence the need for the tactile paving. And, so there's 2 things going on there, and like I say, the federal ADA requirements only require a contrast in light or dark. And so my assumption is that this relates to the visually impaired, and at a certain, they could detect a certain level of light and dark difference. Maybe they don't see yellow at all. I don't know where Caltrans went with the yellow, but hopefully we will get more information from Jim Porter if we send this memo. Laura?
I think there really is something, this has been a constant for all the time I've lived here with Public Works, in that despite the fact that we are a rural area and there's that type of an ambience, whatever the county uses along El Camino is the same materials and things that would be used over here. I'm not saying it's intentional, I'm just wondering if there's a, how do I say, there's a way that we can be part of these kinds of decisions before they're permanently installed by someone who maybe doesn't have the most discerning eye. And I don't know how we can make that happen. So anyhow, that's separate, but a part of this. So yeah, so where do you want to, it seems like there's a bunch of questions here, Chris, that you brought up that are interesting. So
I
you
have
want to?
just a comment. As far as the letter goes, and it seems like a small thing, but shouldn't we ask, or supposedly ask, shades of black, gray, brown, etc., add etc. in there? Because I know that there's a wider variety of colors than the ones that are listed here, and that might encourage them to offer up options.
I left red out because I didn't want red.
I've seen dark green, you know, I've seen dark green ones, so I mean, I know that there's a variety out there.
How about we take a moment for public comment? I have a speaker
Well,
slip here.
before we do that, I had
Oh.
one other comment on the draft letter itself. I fully support sending us, but I think that first paragraph should be worded much more strongly. Not, would it be possible, the MCC requests that you consider installing something more in character with the rural area, such as, rather than, would it be possible?
Be bold.
Do we want to hold back on this and redraft a letter, or
Nick, you have a
should we, Nicholas?
I'm just gonna kind of throw some stuff out there, try to guide you guys along here. So I think Chris hit on a really good point. I would ask, what are the county standards? Who designed those standards? Were they determined by the Director of Public Works, or was this a board action? My recollection is that this is county standard. Yellow is a county standard. And that was determined, I like to believe, for a very good reason. I don't know what that reason is, but I like to believe that we don't do things just to do it. But I do believe it is, county standard is yellow. So I would ask the firm, is this county standard? Why is this county standard? Who determined that standard? And then also include in the letter, ask for a known future project list. So ask for what's known at this time. If you want to get out ahead of it, ask to know where these are going to be installed. And that's really the only way to get ahead of this is, okay, so they're going to put, the next, projected in the next 3 years, they're going to put 5 more in at these locations. And then that's where you start. Because if you say, we would like to see, in the future, we would like to see, the red ones going, I'm just picking a color. Bill likes the, Bill
Green, he likes green.
So you want the green, so the,
Irish.
You would like to see the green ones go in. Unless, you know when and where they're gonna be going, kind of, you open up the door for another yellow one. So, so try to figure that out. But like I said, I believe it's county standard, and so you'll want to figure that out first. That'll be the first step. And so actually the other thing is, the first letter may not want to be a request for action. The first letter would probably want to be a request for information.
Right.
Because once you have all the information, you'll be able to make a very good ask for a situation.
So more specific questions than just, would it be possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said,
Right.
I wouldn't go with an ask, I would just go for an information request.
What are the standards? Why, who determined them? Was it a board action, and a list of future projects? Leonard, did you want to speak on this issue?
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thanks, Dan and Lisa, for taking this on. If I was writing a letter, I guess it's really a good thing that I'm not, because my letter would start out with, what were you thinking? I'm hard pressed to come up with a color that's worse than yellow, maybe chartreuse or something. The point is that yellow is really one of the worst colors for this area they possibly could have done. And, personally, I don't care if it's the county standard. It can't apply here. This is a semi-rural coastal zone. And so it doesn't matter if it's the county standard. We have different standards for all kinds of things here. We have special zoning designations that don't exist elsewhere in the county, and on and on and on. And it's not relevant if it's the county standard. So I agree with Dave's comments that the first paragraph needs to be stronger. Obviously I agree with Laura's comments about what's appropriate for El Camino is not necessarily appropriate here, and this has been an ongoing struggle. And look at some of the ridiculous streetlights they installed in El Granada a few years ago. I got a call from somebody when one of them was installed in front of her house. She was just about in tears over that idiot thing that Public Works installed without any community input. So one of the things that your first letter needs to ask for is that they completely stop installing any more yellow ones here until this is resolved. Because I think that at the end of the day, you should ask for all the yellow ones to be removed unless they have to be jackhammered out, which apparently a lot of them don't. they screwed up, they should have to pay for it. It's just not acceptable. And, you know, if you can't get a permit to paint your house yellow,
Yeah.
what are they doing installing these things all over the coast side? And you cannot get a permit to paint your house yellow. You know, this is obviously coming from some bureaucrat in DC with too much time on his hands, because they didn't bother to ask the wheelchair users what they think. I've asked. They're not happy. So, you know, this is totally ridiculous. And, you know, first they required the wheelchair ramps to be installed. And then bureaucrat got bored and said, oh, how can we cause more public funds to be expended? Let's make them rip all those out and redo them. That's what's going on here. So, yeah, please strengthen the first paragraph as Dave suggested, and absolutely ask for no further ones to be installed in the coastal zone until this issue is resolved. Thank you.
Okay, my thought is here that we have a consensus on people think we should pursue this. And so the question in my mind is the revision of the letter and how to put this into motion. Because it seems to me like, okay, your suggestions, Nicholas, to come at this from what are the standards? Why? Who determined them? Was it a board action? And what the future project list is. We need that information before we really go any further. And so perhaps, I mean, I and one other person, we could redraft this first paragraph. If you want to work on that with me, Chris? Does that sound okay to folks? Should we have a motion to approve and to approve the letter, and then Chris and I could just
Do you need a motion to rewrite?
We would need a motion, in my opinion, to include, you have a list of the 4 questions that you were going to ask, to change it to informational, including this following information, and then we
we're asking for
Yeah.
more information.
And I think one more important point to add to Nicholas, his ideas, the letter, is to, final question, what would be the process to request something different in our rural area? So that's all, you get everything all in one, all the information back in one time.
That's an excellent question,
And then we
because
can
that's the
take
crux of the issue.
take the next step, if we choose to. And I honestly, I think all it is just asking the Board of Supervisors if they would accommodate.
Well,
our
if
request.
it was
That's
a board,
what-
if it was a board action and needed another board action, then we would do that, but it may not be that, maybe something else.
Now, I'm pretty sure it affects, that's what the DPW, one of the guys at DPW told me.
Okay, so
That, you know, ultimately would be, eventually be board action, so.
what, I thought you talked to Caltrans, I know you talked to DPW.
Yeah, a few months ago. I had kind of a rushed conversation.
You talked to DPW also, and they said the standard was yellow? I thought you said it was
No,
Caltrans.
I couldn't get a clear answer, but
All right,
the answer was to get it from the Board of Supervisors.
may I have a motion to approve the letter with the revision of the first paragraph to include the questions? What are the standards? Why? Who determined them? Was it a board action? And what is the list of future projects? Anybody can say, I so moved.
Yeah.
Like
In the
that.
process.
Yeah, I'll also move.
I thought there was one
but-
more.
But with the amendment that I believe it should be a stronger statement that we would like them to not install yellow and install darker colors instead. In other words, what you've got there, instead of not a would it be possible, please.
Well, okay, let's back up. I thought we decided what Nicholas was suggesting is, we don't know, it may be a county standard to
If
do
it is,
yellow, in
it's
which
not-
case it would be
It's not
futile.
obvious to Google if there's a county standard. I just spent 5 minutes looking.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there isn't one.
I was gonna say, I've tried finding county standards on Google's too.
We
That
would,
So,
doesn't,
but I
Google doesn't
think,
always work that well.
here's my rationale.
Or the county, which one?
I'm blaming Google.
Here's my rationale. Put the request first, then ask for the information, and make it clear what we're trying to do.
so is the request, let me clarify, would it be more like the second sentence? What we would prefer aesthetically is anything but yellow. Is that it? Is that what we would prefer?
Or red.
And basically, and it says the photos below are examples of what we would prefer.
Yeah, but I think you do need to make the explicit statement that you've got in the first sentence, just make it stronger rather than a question. Make it a request.
Can you just move that you come back with a revised letter as opposed to specifying everything now?
Well, so.
Well, it just puts it off. If we can approve this, the revisions we want in the letter, and approve that tonight, then the letter can go.
Right, so the.
Otherwise, it's gonna take
The
another
motion I
month.
was gonna make
Okay.
was basically, I move that we send this letter with Lisa and Chris to reword slightly without changing the intent. And then they can send it without further discussion.
Do you have a second?
I thought there was one thing you left out, which I think Nicholas had brought up as well, and it had,
It was, what's the process to get it?
that's it. That's it.
We're giving credit where it's due.
Well, I think it's important just to kind of, save a step, that way you got all the answers.
Because that would be our next question. Okay, you can do it, great, how do we do it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, do I have a second?
A second.
A sec.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously, thank you. Agenda item 4C.
No backpacks in sight. Tie myself up in.
Item 4C is a status review of MCC issues and actions during 2012-2013. And it's coming to life here. So I want to kind of move through this quickly, but, and just, I'm not going to read the whole thing. So Parks and Trails fits all on one page here, and this action has happened in 2013. We had a presentation here on Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, a lot of issues and concerns the community had about projects happening there. That was in February. And it was kind of in response to that the County Parks Forum that we hosted in April happened. And that was at a special venue at Cypress Meadows, and it was very well attended, very well received. And this is what I would like to continue and hope to have at our next meeting. And also Christina Carey from will come and update us on Rancho issues as well. She hasn't been here since last April, although of course they have their own meetings at various places. The Double Slide Trail design, the county parks held two meetings in August on that, also at Cypress Meadows, and very well attended, went very well, and I think we're on a roll here with this kind of a thing. And it seems to be one of the most popular topics in the community is parks. And then, of course, Moss Beach Park, we had that wonderful meeting here in August, community outpouring when it was found out that we might lose that park, and the MCC wrote a letter in support, and the Board of Supervisors voted for the county to acquire the park. The Coastal Trail, we wrote a letter asking for a designated walkable coastline trail on the bluff instead of on Airport, or in addition to Airport Street. And another big thing that happened was the county has now returned to a standalone Parks Department with new funds. So part of the point of doing this is these are topics that we've been working on and will be working on as we consider what our priorities are and how we're going to spend our time and work on these in the year to come. On the topic of the harbor and shoreline issues, on the Harbor District, we had several presentations and letters on their projects, the history of their projects and plans, and shoreline erosion and dredging. And then also, so we sent our letters off and they disappear into the ether, but whatever. I think that it helps inform the public, and the information is on our website, and so I still think it's worthwhile. The Harbor District and the Army Corps had a public meeting in November on the surface beach erosion study, and so now at least we know that that's not going to bring much help anytime soon. This regional sediment management plan, Supervisor Horsley wrote in support of including Half Moon Bay in the Santa Cruz portion, Santa Cruz plan that's getting underway. And this will be an opportunity for a pilot beach nourishment program at Surface Beach, and this is just this project, planning project, is just be getting underway. This will also be happening in 2014, I hope. And then there's also the county Caltrans Surface Beach erosion protection project that they're working on together with. They have grant money for planning on that, and the MCC requested a rep on that. We did this at our last meeting, I think, on the agency work group. Okay, so Highway 1, you know, there have been several years of studies, and the final concept plan finally was released in 2012, and this was, about 2 years ago, we had this joint meeting. We suggested a joint meeting with the MCC and the county to present this concept plan to the public, and it was all very tentative and everything, but it worked really well, and I think it's because of that that these other meetings have been happening and are quite useful, these community forum kind of things. The MCC submitted comments on the Phase 2 study and the action plan. We were invited to send reps to the Devil Slide Task Force, which was a new thing and very useful to be there on those discussions. We supported grant funding applications, and there were letters concerning what the public participation would be in the design phase for these highway projects, and the county, Nicholas has written up a public process for how that will happen. Okay, so then in 2013 on the highway stuff, we have the Midcoast parking study. Midcoast council reps were invited to attend that introductory meeting, and we expect a report on that. Actually, Christina Carey might, well, we'll see if she has something to say early this year. The project for crossings, medians, and left turns, got grant funding for the planning, but the lighthouse was left out, the lighthouse crossing. So the MCC asked that be included, and that was granted. There was a little blip there with Sam's left turn where we got the early referral on that and commented on the plans for that, and it was left out of the staff report, but we've been told that won't happen again. There was a meeting called Supervisor Horsley with Caltrans to talk about improving communications with Caltrans, and we were invited to send reps to that meeting. Oh, and a little aside here, encroaching vegetation and advertising in the right-of-way. Speaking of Caltrans, I've learned from experience, the best way just to deal with that is just through the Caltrans District 4 website. You just go there and type in whatever the problem is, and they eventually get to it. And so the transportation management plan now is funded. The county has funded that, and that will be going on at the same time with the Princeton plan, and all these things will be happening in this coming year. And then we have the parallel trail that Nicholas just mentioned. He's working on the grant application for that. Planning and zoning, airport. There are two plans that have been in the works over the last year or two, the airport layout plan and the airport land use compatibility plan update. And the MCC asked to have a representative on the project advisory team for that, and that was granted. And they have come here to MCC to give us several talks about the progress of that report, and that will, that's on track for final adoption in 2014. That ties in closely with the Princeton plan. So Princeton, since 2012, the MCC was advocating for issues in Princeton, particularly shoreline erosion, and the M1 industrial zone, which is not Princeton proper, but the area west of Airport Street and north of there. And when the county scope of work for the Princeton plan came out, they included our issues. It's all there. We commented on the scope of work, and we had a rep at the consultant interview team, and we have a rep on the steering committee. And the county's got this robust public process going. We had this huge visioning workshop at Oceana Hotel, over 200 people there. And so that will be going on in 2014 and beyond. The Design Review Committee, Laura's mission, has made some progress. We've got 4 vacancies filled, and things are definitely looking up. Planning permit applications, we get early referrals from the planning department when a coastal development permit is applied for, and for the most part, we don't comment. I think at this stage, houses Design Review Committee covers that, and so we haven't commented on very many, but these 4 we did. The Princeton Boatyard was an appeal to the Planning Commission. This is a big development plan for the middle block on the shoreline of Princeton, and we commented at length, and the Committee for Green Foothills did too, but nevertheless, that project, the hearing at the Planning Commission was postponed to a date uncertain, and the property is now for sale. La Costanera Restaurant, we had commented on their use permit amendment and some other, and some Coastal Commission violations, and that, the NEGDEC, or the Negative Declarations environmental part of that process, has been delayed. So we've been waiting to have that come back to us, and it could come back to us at any time. The 8th Street landslide repair, that's in Montera. It's right there on the bluff, and we commented on that, and it's a small thing, but they were going to plant these replacement trees right in this open view area south of the house, blocking the view from the highway, and we got that changed, so they're not going to plant them there. And then we have Big Wave, which we've already had one meeting, kind of a preview, and so that will be something we'll be seeing during this year, no doubt, as well. Montera Coastal Access and Views from County Streets and Rights-of-Way. We've been working hard on this for the last year, and progress was made. The fence at the end of Seacliff was removed last June, restoring the view, and we have a petition, well, we don't have it, citizen effort, has a petition on change.org with 370 signatures. This is mainly focused now on 7th Street and 5th Street, and so, you know, we can be patient and keep gently pressing on this, and maybe some more good news will happen. But it's there. It's an issue that's on our list. Then we have miscellaneous letters, and you know, these are things that most of this we've written a letter and it's been resolved, but this is just to point out that these things will always be coming up. There'll always be miscellaneous things that just show up, and all of a sudden we have to deal with it. We had policy changes during the last couple of years. Our funding allocation procedure is much improved in that before even though we always had a budget of $3,000, it was dispersed on a reimbursement basis, and if we didn't spend it by the end of the year, it was lost to us. And that's no longer the case. We get the money up front, and we can carry that balance over if we don't spend it. Outreach and miscellaneous, our new website has a news blog, homepage, focus topics, calendar, issues, pages, and archives that go back to the MCC founding in 1990. Take note, Bill. Check it out. You might be interested to see, you might be interested to read some interesting old materials there.
Can I point out, this was an incredible job that you have done, and I can't even imagine the hours that went into, this is all like paper documents.
Scanning.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but you know, is going through, okay, this happened because last spring, County Council's office wanted to know details about the Midcoast Council's role in a certain house project that they were being sued over in Montara. Nothing new. And, you know, and they wanted to know information from like 10 or 12 years ago that the Midcoast Council did. So it's all over there in that office. And we never had a filing secretary in all the 20 years. And so, you know, I dove in. And, but you know, I found some really cool stuff, and a lot of it was a big help. For example, about the Montara streets. I found old papers there. Anyway.
Policies for design review that the county didn't have?
Yeah,
On how it's supposed to be managed?
I'd like to ditto what Laura just said. You're doing a great job, and I'd like to ante up for just a quick round of applause for all the work. This is
Yes.
the website especially.
Absolutely.
All the information there is just so easy to get, and
Yes.
it's just
Well, that's
enormous.
something here from you.
Why's that?
I mean, you didn't strike me as the type of person who be searching for stuff on the website.
When I do, it's there.
Glad to hear it. Actually, it's kind of fun. And if Len Erickson were here, I would thank him for making me do it. And we have a Facebook page, and which has a little more breadth in the kind of things I post there. And, you know, we have candidate forums and emergency preparedness. I think, you know, Bill's kind of brought this to us and plugged away at it. And I think we should stay involved with that. And I actually tried to go to the meeting last week, but there wasn't a meeting because I wanted to ask them about the tsunami escape route. I live in the anyway.
They skipped it because it was.
Holiday.
Yeah, it was right after the meeting, so that'll be
Okay.
the first Friday in February.
Okay, so, that's it. Let me turn that off. That's all I have to say on that. Does anybody have any questions? So, you know, you can save that material and might be useful to refer to.
I mean, this is a really impressive body of work, and one of the things that I said that I wanted to do, I said this as a candidate, that I wanted to do if I was elected, was elevate the profile of the MCC. And so, I mean, this packet of material has a lot. I think what I guess I'm getting to is we need to publicize this list of successes. We need to pull out of here like the MCC's top 10 accomplishments and come up with a fact sheet and send that out to some media outlets, because there's a disconnect out there. You know, writing, what does the MCC do? Writing letters? I mean, what does that do? But it's hard for the public to make the connection to this advisory council and then the tangible benefits that they're seeing out there in the community. They're not making that connection that this body is helping that process and helping to get those things. And, you know, there's, you know, 20 or 30 things in here. We could pull out the things that, the 10 things that we think might have the most impact, or have had, or are having the most impact on the community, and send that list to the Half Moon Bay Review and Patch, and even the Examiner, I think it is, the San Mateo County publication.
This would be a good, what this agenda item was, is to kind of get your thought thinking about the retreat. These are kind of things we can talk about at the
Okay.
retreat, you know.
Well,
What is this? Yeah.
I would request that we all think about this, because if we do not take this 2 years worth of accomplishments and somehow publicize that and let people know how the MCC was involved in that, we've lost an opportunity. because the community is not really seeing the connection there. You know, they write letters, what does that do? They're not seeing that, this body has helped move these things along, and if we're doing kind of a year-end summary or a term-end summary, now's the time to do it, at the beginning of the next term. Look at, here's top 10, and it can just be the top 10. We digest it down, make it easy to understand. This is what we did, result that you are seeing out there. And we can talk about that, sure, at the retreat, but just because of the timing, this is a golden opportunity to start in on letting people know. I mean, sadly, there's 4 members of the public here, but if the public, I feel, could make that stronger connection to what is being talked about in this room and people that come and speak and things that are being discussed, and then what actually happens out there, I think we'd have more people here wanting to participate in the discussion. So, yeah, well, I was trying to inflate our numbers here. We got 3 members of the public that just showed up. That's great.
So every meeting isn't going to be of broad interest, and I don't think this is particularly one. But I think our next meeting on parks will be like that. And then there's the thing that we're here for the community. When that Moss Beach Park thing happened, it was just a garden variety meeting we had. We were meeting that night, and they all came. And it was, they had that venue to present that thing. It was totally compelling, and it was on camera.
But Chris made that happen.
I mean, I helped out. I advised them to
Grease
come,
the
but
skids, if you will.
right. But again, but I feel like that's already forgotten. The MCC's role in that. MCC. What did they have to do with it? That was county.
Well,
that was Friends of Moss Beach Park.
I don't feel like we need to take ownership I'm just saying that we provide the venue for them to get that initial meeting we had here. It was unforgettable.
Yeah.
And I know that from my own community at Pillar Ridge, when we had an issue and we didn't know where to get traction. And April Vargas sponsored us at the MCC, and we filled that room, and people got up and spoke to the issue, and then things started moving.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. Are you saying timing-wise because it's the beginning of the year? Is that what you're?
Because we've had the end of a term, 2012, 2013, and from that term we have these accomplishments. Mm-hmm. And so before we start a new term and kind of muddy the waters of what did this term do and that term do, this is the time to say, that we participated in the saving of Moss Beach Park. We did this and we did that, and we sent this letter and it resulted in this act. A top 10 list. It doesn't have to be every single thing. It's a at a glance bulleted top 10 list that could easily be, in the paper.
Well, you could pose it
to
as
let people know.
Pose it as a thank you. I mean, as opposed to just listing, a bunch of accomplishments. Thank you to the COSI and its members. Because of your participation and input, you helped us get these things done. So you kind of put the congratulations on them, and it's a better vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not saying we have to say, MCC, we rule. Right. I'm just saying,
in the press,
get it out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great idea, Joel, of we say, thank you for bringing this to our attention, for being part of it, for participating, for making us what we are, making this happen.
Right.
And this is what you helped make happen. But I think we need to capture the opportunity to let people know this body is effective and this is what we're doing.
I think it's gradually happening. And if you read the review every week, you'll pick up on that. And
you just have to read the review.
There are mentions just practically every week. We are mentioned in the paper now. That was never the case before. And online. There was even a thing today online talking about our meeting tonight. They look at our website. The reporters look at our website and see what's going on.
I believe that for sure.
And there was, after that Parks meeting last April, Bill Murray, the publisher of the paper, wrote a piece about what a good move, what a great meeting for the county and the MCC to do this, together, and so it's noticed.
Well, why don't you turn that into an agenda item?
I will write that down.
And then, you can come and present what, your ideas and.
Yeah, I might solicit some ideas as to what, we think. I mean, I would love to have it as an agenda item and solicit ideas from the public as well, of like what do you think, and also this body, if we were gonna make a top 10 list, what would be the top 10 things? So, okay, I will write that down and I will work with Lisa to.
I don't think it's urgent. We're not gonna do this next meeting, we're gonna parks. Right after that, we got a retreat, so I really think this is retreat material.
Yeah, it seems like great material for
Okay.
retreat.
I agree with you, Chris, that the word could get out more, but know that there are a lot of silent supporters out there. And I think if you polled them all, they'll all come back and say, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't get distracted.
Anything else on this agenda item? Okay, we got one thing we pulled off consent, which is the Prospect, the letter to DPW on Prospect. Chris, you had
Yes,
question.
at the last meeting, okay, just 1 second, please. Switch my notes here, we're on 4D now. Okay, at the last meeting, we had pushed it to this meeting because we wanted to check with adjacent business owners. Joel had mentioned that he would contact adjacent business owners and to let them know what we were thinking and see if they had any thoughts on that. And so my question is, Joel, did you have a chance? And if so, what kind of response did you get?
I did have a chance to talk to some of the business owners, and of the business owners I spoke to, it was unanimously no way. They were very, very, very much into keeping their parking spaces. We talked at length.
It's only one.
It's only one parking.
It's only one parking space.
He's just reporting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my parking space.
Well, you're the messenger.
So exactly, and so, we talked about, they were a little appalled about the loss of any parking, period, and we're very much for as much parking as possible. We talked about the safety aspect, which I do understand and agree with. One of the things I mentioned was perhaps there's a compromise there. Some of the points that were mentioned is cars that are parked there at night, specifically, or left there overnight. Maybe, given the fact that some of the business owners weren't into it, maybe it would be a better idea to have 2-hour parking or time-limited parking if it's a safety issue. And I'm sure you guys were mostly here last time, so, I don't know if that would be just as valid of a request for the DPW.
Do you think they understood we're not talking about the whole side of the street?
Yeah, well,
We're talking about that one-
with the two people I talked to, I made sure, number one, that I had the beautiful printout, and then we actually walked over to the curb and looked at the curb itself, so they understand.
And even then, they
Yes.
didn't want to let that go.
Correct.
Wow.
Businesses need parking, and they're pretty, in general, whether you're on the Midcoast, Half Bear, the Bayside, businesses need parking. It's important to them. And taking any parking away from businesses, even one spot, is an issue. That's a general thing.
Well, yeah, for sure, but what you're balancing here is parking versus safety
Safety.
hazard. Yeah, that's the hassle.
And also flow, when it gets congested, just that, if somebody parks there, it could bottleneck up and then slow down the flow. And of course, all the businesses want people to get in and out safely. And
Right, so it
and
would be
use their-
different, if I had spoken to the public about it, or if we put it out to the public thing.
Yeah,
This
I
is
understand.
purely a business perspective,
Sure.
but that was, who I felt would be the most impacted at that time.
Uh-huh.
Not from a safety standpoint, but a kind of general standpoint.
So this is the, I don't know if you wanted to say which businesses, is it pretty
Well, I
well
spoke
covered
with
here?
Mesa Luna, I spoke with the American Legion, and I spoke with the Old Princeton Landing.
Okay.
I didn't really get anywhere with the American Legion, but I was able to speak with the owners of both the OPL and Mesa Luna.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Pardon?
I was not able to speak with Pardini. Yeah, he would be the most effective, exactly.
Joel, what were the alternatives? You mentioned the 2-hour parking, something about at night?
Well, I mean, I guess it's, yes, you could say 2-hour parking or limited parking or time zone parking, like there's only parking from X to X. Now, that doesn't address the flow factor, but it does address the parking there at night factor.
And you got the sense that if they just striped it red, the businesses would not be happy, but if there was some kind of alternative compromise, they would be willing to entertain that?
Yes.
Do you think the businesses would be willing to pay to jackhammer the sidewalk out and move it over so that people can park there safely?
Do we ask business owners for money?
I mean, clearly the way this was designed.
Oh, no, and I agree, you know, I mean, it should be a straight shot, but in response to taking the existing curb and painting it red, I was run out of town.
Okay.
You didn't bring the donation cup with?
So, given that, one of the things we talked about was the widening. Maybe we should just redraft this letter to be a request to DPW to see whether it would be possible to widen the street in that section to match the other cutout.
Well, that's asking to spend a lot of money. Supervisor Horsley was here when we brought that up.
I know, but given the responses, I think that might be worthwhile substitute action.
What about a fog line?
Yeah, I saw that in the letter. What is a fog line?
That's the white line. Okay,
Oh,
you
just
guys
the-
need to go over the area. If you go, we have one comparison is Capistrano, where these bulb out things are painted red because there's no room to park, just like there's no room to park here.
Yeah.
The other example is if you go to the other end of Prospect and you jog onto Harvard, there you have the fog line on, you have the double yellow in the middle and the fog line on the outside, and this delineates the edge of the travel lane, and it makes it look narrower, and I'm guessing that they did that on Harvard to slow people down. It also provides then a bike lane, which Prospect is a bike route, class 3 bike route, which doesn't have the, so the fog line would then provide the bike lane, and at the point where it reaches this one section here, it would be clear that you would, if you were to park there, you'd be parked over the fog line in the travel lane, which doesn't, that doesn't change. You just put the line there to say, look, guy, you're parking in the street. So, I guess, okay, this is news I hadn't heard back from you, and so I assumed that there wasn't a problem. The letter, the way I went ahead and wrote this letter, it just points out, it takes the approach that we have a safety concern. It describes the concern, and then in the last paragraph it says, what can be done to solve this hazardous situation? And it gives 2 suggestions. One, that the section be designated no parking and the curb painted red, and the other it says to add fog lines, same treatment as on Harbor, which might have other safety benefits as well. Do you think we need to change the letter and add that the businesses object, or do you think the fact that the way the letter is worded is gentle enough, just asking what can be done, not demanding that anything be done? What's the feeling of the council? Do you want to drop this issue?
Yeah, I think saying, what about making it no parking, and by the way, the businesses object, does not come across right to the county or the community.
Well, nevertheless, we still have the hazardous situation.
And I think it's worth raising that point with DPW, whether we want to go into the fact that I think we could say that we thought about the red and we talked to businesses and they don't want to lose the parking places. You know, just getting this on record with DPW in case they have work in the area, it might affect it otherwise, because we know in the past they've done work that affects areas that could have been improved had they known there was an issue ahead of time.
Yeah.
So maybe just getting the issue in front of them and laying out the information we have is the best thing to do right now.
Or could it be part of, or is it part of the plan Princeton?
And that puts it out 2+ years, but
That's
still.
years away, yeah.
even so, getting it out there might be worth doing.
So what I hear you saying, Dave, is that, so what we want is to identify that that the MCC is identifying a safety hazard here. And I don't know that, is it our role to have to, find the solution?
That's why I didn't say what we wanted. I just said, there's a hazard here, what can be done?
Right. And that part I think is good. I'm just saying in light of what
Yeah.
Joel found out, I think we need to mention that the loss of parking spaces is not desirable from a business perspective.
So you say we need a sentence added to that effect?
I think they know that, though.
Yeah.
They certainly know that.
Having done the research and talked to people, I think we need to incorporate that.
Does someone want to revise the letter? What are we doing here?
Also,
Yeah,
by the way,
I think we need to revise.
We already approved this letter, this is
Just to keep
interesting.
in mind, there is someone from the county sitting here who's aware that the businesses are opposed to it. So if we're not talking about like not putting it in the letter, I'm still aware that the businesses, I'm still aware that the businesses are opposed to it. You may as well just put it in there. You can leave it out, I'll still, I think it's still
So this will
important.
be in the archives for 20 years from now, and somebody's going, printed plan.
My hesitation is more the chore of revising the letter off the cuff.
I think it's
Understood.
giving the attention to Department of Public Works first step. Let them decide it's a safety issue. I agree with the business community, we shouldn't lose a business, parking space. But, just looking at it, it's like, what was their intention? They created the bottleneck.
Yeah. They
But
can
maybe,
a solution.
I don't know.
It seems like, I think we all agree that this is a safety issue, but the question is, how do we move forward on this? Because I see an analogy here between what's going on with Half Moon Bay and the bridge down there, which is a lot of the businesses are upset where this decision was made, what's going on, even though there was public forums about it and things like that. There's a lot of outrage about that, and that's a bigger deal than this 2 parking spots. But if we hadn't contacted the businesses and went ahead with this, they would be upset. Why didn't you contact us? And now they've told us they don't want it, and you're still doing it. I think that there's a lot of things going on here. One thing that I would like to see is, and I'm not saying we have to do, but as a idea is, I would like to see this come back as an agenda item with a representative DPW here, with Scott Holmes from Big Wave here, because as I mentioned in the last meeting, their whole traffic flow for Big Wave comes right out at this intersection, and I feel like we need to have all of this together with those business owners invited to speak, so that everybody can see all the issues on the table, so that it will be clear that this is a problem, and we can have DPW take the lead on that, of this is the problem, instead of the MCC pushing, have it be clear that if Big Wave goes through, there's gonna be a lot of traffic there. There's already a lot of traffic there. It's a compromised section of the road that you said if you put fog lines in there, it's clearly too narrow, but the businesses don't want it because they feel like they're gonna lose parking spots, and they're not looking at the safety issue. And if we can get somebody to say, hey, business, this is a bigger issue than you.
And someone other than us saying that.
Yeah, because
I don't think there's any harm in the council being on record as concerned about the safety at this point.
Yeah, I think that's totally
It might be, all in all, it might be a lot cheaper for DPW to, I don't know if this is possible, but really to get a lot of these big meetings and all these players together, send a jackhammer over there and boom, knock that out and problem solved. The cars can park off the road
Leonard, would you like to speak?
and it would look more rural.
As the one who suggested talking to the businesses, I also have to provide the counterpoint, which is that the county zoning ordinance, probably the parking chapter, I would assume, explicitly says all businesses are required to provide full on-site parking. The county theoretically does not allow businesses to rely on street parking in any way. So, it was appropriate to discuss it with the businesses, but you also, now, what complicates it is some of those businesses have probably been there for so long that they predate the county parking ordinance. So, you know, this is one of those things that it starts out complicated, and the more you look into it, the more complicated you find out it is. So yeah, I think maybe the council just needs to send a letter saying, yeah, there's a big safety problem there, do something about it.
So just real quick, so then is it more, as you said before, just a question of who wants to do the revision of the draft? I mean, is that what you're looking for at this point?
I don't mind doing a revision if I had a real clear sense of what is needed here. I think, after what Leonard said, I'm thinking if we were to, okay, the subject of this letter is, you want to speak to?
Yeah, just a quick one.
Sure.
I think if you just drop the last sentence and leave it hanging there for the county to come back with a solution. You identify that it's a safety issue, and maybe if you want to add anything else, I don't have the letter in front of me, I'm sorry. But the fact that what Chris was saying, the fact that what Chris was saying is point out to the county that it's bad now, but for the foreseeable future, it's only going to keep getting worse. If you think about it, if big wave does happen, but still years down the road, but they're all leaving at the same time, it's happy hour at Mezzaluna, and at the American Legion, and at all the other restaurants / bars over there. So, you know, that's just an accident waiting to happen. You know, so just don't get into the solution. You know,
Yeah.
You're not a traffic engineer. Just say,
Right.
and the main thing is you want to bubble this up, because it's going to take the county, how many years has it been for the parallel trail? 10, 12? You know, so, you know, just start bubbling it up and send a letter every 6 months till something happens.
Thank you, Bill. I think I see the light.
Yeah, just end it at what
So-
can be done to solve this hazardous
There is an
solution.
issue.
And we'll add one more sentence. It's bad now, it's only going to get worse.
Yes,
And just end with that. Is everybody okay with that?
absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Yes. And thank you, Chris, for calling that. I just, that was on the consent.
All
Off
right.
the counts, but never certain, Bill, I like it.
That brings us to agenda item 6, council activity, correspondence received and meetings attended. Anybody? Okay, we have.
Oh, I just wanted to point out that my
Yes.
daughter wrote an opinion piece for the Half Moon Bay Review, because it's so involved on transportation corridor of Route 1 and how the schools need to be supporting the issue of the inability for people to get down there during the school times. And also the difficulty in using the parallel trail for these kids on a bike because of all the sports equipment. They don't have lockers. Sports equipment they have to carry, and 500 pounds of books, that it makes it really hard to use a bicycle.
It was a very well written article.
Yeah, actually, Laura,
Oh, I will tell her you said that.
Laura, your daughter's article actually caught the eye of a couple people at the county.
Really?
And a couple people had asked if it was your daughter. I said, I assumed it was, but I couldn't confirm, but I'll be honest, I got a second with Dave's. I mean, it was a very impressive article, and, like I said, it caught the eye of a couple people at the county, so.
Oh, I'll tell her. Well, no wonder you're confused, because it must have been the blonde hair. You didn't know if it was me or her.
That's exactly what it was. But yeah, like
Oh,
I
I'll
said.
pass it on.
please
That's
let
kind
her
of
know.
you.
Very impressive.
She'll enjoy that. That was all.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
I attended the Coastside Design Review Committee meeting, as did Laura, on December 12th. And I'm happy to announce that Willard Williams, the new architect, was there and sat in, heard 3 cases, helped us move forward a case that had been stuck for 2 months in Montera. In addition, the alternate for Moss Beach was there, David Schoenberg, and he also sat in judgment on a case, and that case moved forward as well, a case that had been continued because we didn't have enough people to hear it the month before. So we successfully moved through 3 projects, all 3 projects on the thing, 2 of which had been stymied by the lack of membership. And I really want to thank Laura and CDRC member Chris Lang for their tireless efforts on this. Relentless efforts on this. Thank you.
And you should see the marks on Nicholas's back from the pounding.
I still have several emails to respond to, so I will get on those this week.
Okay, we got a letter which I notified you about from the Coastside Fire Protection District. They are updating their mission, vision, and value statements, and they requested our input. And I asked y'all to think about this, if anybody had an idea on how we would like to handle that. Does anybody have any interest in opinions, anything?
I have to say, I looked at this letter several times, and just felt like I'm not really sure, what it is they want us to input on. I mean,
It's very well written, it's comprehensive.
Well, there's, we could, if somebody really felt inspired to write them a new document, that's one option, just a second. Or we could say, oh, we really like what they have, or none of us are really interested in delving into this, or any permutation. Basically, it probably would be nice to respond to the letter in some way.
I actually, reading the existing mission values, et cetera, it seems perfectly good and hardly needs any updating at all.
Well, that's good to know.
I think it's very clear that people felt that the previous fire board was not abiding by these
You just actually woke up my memory again. So just so you know, I think it's January 15th at 10 o'clock at the main fire station in Half Moon Bay. They are going to do a walkthrough of their facilities. And this is sort of a precursor to, they have plans afoot to look at maybe consolidating. This is just out there, I'm not quite sure. I need to talk to some board members to get more details. Of consolidating both Elginard and Moss Beach into a single firehouse. And the rumor has been that it might be over somewhere on the airport property. And I think probably at some point, the Midcoast Community Council needs to make the community aware of that as well and get some straight feedback. I know there's issues in response time to the top of Elginard from the current station. So moving that farther away cannot be improving it. And then there's also the whole issue of putting on airport property. You have to rent that property by the county, and the county, as we know in the Montero Water Sanitary District, is not always willing to keep those terms in the same level that you agreed to on. So I don't think you want to do that.
what was the date of that walkthrough, though?
It's the 15th. As soon as I get a firm confirmation, I think it's 10 o'clock on the 15th. They're going to start at the main station, but they're going to go to each one of the firehouses. I know I'm going to attend, but you might want to, somebody from the council, start tracking this, because if they do go ahead, it'll be more of an issue. There's costs involved and all that.
So this is
Well, maybe,
January, wait, which 15th?
Yeah, I believe January.
January
Okay.
15th?
Lisa?
if someone were to volunteer,
I would suggest that the council ask a representative of the fire district to come here sooner rather than later. You want to get your hands on this before it grows legs,
Yeah,
because it's a moronic proposal, and you need to find out where it's coming from and why. So I really think you need to get somebody here sooner rather than later before it builds support somewhere.
what I'm going to suggest is that, what I'm going to ask is a volunteer to to write a reply to this letter. And what I was thinking from what people have been saying is pretty much, the reply would say, we like your mission, vision, whatever, and then maybe there could be a question on asking them for information on their other plans. As, is somebody interested in doing that letter?
I would be willing to do it.
Dave? Thank you, and I would imagine that letter could go on consent at a future meeting. Does that sound right, people?
Yeah.
You have a good sense of where we are here?
I think so.
Okay. So, future agendas, item 6. January 22nd meeting, as I announced earlier, is a Parks themed meeting. And I wanted to get a special venue for that because we hope for a large turnout and we want to do a lot of outreach to have that happen. And unfortunately, the Cypress Meadows is not available. And but I have a real strong lead on Mavericks Event Center, and it is first of all, it's way out of our price range, but we may get generous donation and only have to pay their cost. And I would like to ask, because I don't know what the amount is yet, I haven't heard back definitely, I would like to ask for approval for up to $300. And I would try and get it for less, but I'm sure I can get it for that much. And the other issue was that they have already a reservation for that date, but it's in the daytime, and the people are leaving at 5, but they're coming back the following day. So the simplest thing, obviously, is to leave the table set up the way those people had it, because we're asking for a real bargain here. And basically, this is the brewery owner who would be giving this generous use of this facility. So the setup is these round tables. I'm imagining it's similar to what Plant Princeton had at Oceano around the room. And so people could then just turn to look at the screen or something. Does that sound like it would work? Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure you're always, yeah. You know, I think that's an option. There's always the school. There's always the schools.
Oh.
Why is that? What?
Terrible acoustics.
Yeah.
Why didn't I realize we were doing a
And
concert? I thought we were
expensive.
doing a public meeting.
You can't hear what's going on in that.
I'm just throwing out ideas. I think the schools, I've always liked doing it at the schools because people know where it is.
Yeah.
Schools are always naturally community centers, and it has the capacity to meet whatever, whatever the demand is. I know, go back to the Moss Beach Park thing, we get 200 people in that room. I don't know if we're going to get 200 people on the 22nd, but if we do, you got enough room.
All right, well, I don't know what their price is, but,
I don't think schools charge.
Oh, I'm
for-
sure they
for
do.
Oh,
things like
they're
this.
expensive.
Not at the county.
What?
Not at the county.
Oh,
Let's
really?
talk offline.
all right, well, but I still, if we're gonna, I wanted to get an authorization to spend money tonight.
Okay.
And
Would
and
you
if
need
we
that-
decide,
what do you
no,
need?
not
Food?
from you,
I
from the
didn't think I
council
needed
members.
For
And
food?
if-
The schools are between I called, they're like between $200 and $300 for an
Well,
evening.
look,
So they're.
I
fit
will
in
talk
what
to
you want.
Nicholas further about the school, but if we go ahead with Mavericks and we get a really good price, I would like to ask you for authorization to spend up to $300 to reserve a venue.
Unless
For
a
the
better
20
deal comes along.
You
I'm
got
only
something
saying that,
up
I'm
your
not trying
sleeve?
to, no, I'm not trying to,
Are you offering up your
Joel, you gotta
facility?
be careful when you say something like that.
Yeah.
no, I'm just saying, I don't know if it's appropriate, but, I'd be more than happy to offer some space as long as we have the space available. I wouldn't be able to check until half an hour after we were done here.
Right,
So
so
I
all
can
we,
look at our schedule, but, we have space and it's a good community, it's parks, so.
right, okay, so we're not gonna decide an exact venue here tonight, but I would like authorization to spend up to $300 on that venue if that is determined to be the way to go.
So do you need a motion for that?
So I move to authorize up to $300.
And I
For the
second that.
Special venue for 22nd, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. Okay, so then we will confer more about the specifics.
Wait, did you get a vote there?
Yeah.
She did. yes.
Unanimous.
You raised your hand.
Oh,
You even go
well, I didn't think you had your hand raised. And I didn't think you had your hand raised.
I thought I heard the ayes.
Anybody opposed to the $300?
That's the, yeah.
Does anybody abstain?
Okay.
Oh, when I hit the 9 o'clock mark, it's all downhill for me.
All right,
I would suggest that if we do want a lot of people attending, the sooner we can nail this down, get the word out to the paper.
Yeah, good
the
point.
better.
right, and I worked hard on the outreach for that meeting last April, and it went really well. I was really excited. I like Mavericks Event Center. But whatever, we'll see. I mean, now that I've had people, I had TJ and Bridget pulling strings on this. Mavericks deal, so, maybe just for the one time we can meet over there. Since they made a miracle, and I thank them profusely for putting a word in, and,
Lisa, it is your meeting, and,
And you have up to $300.
you have
well,
a-
hopefully less, okay. The retreat on February 1st,
Yes.
we need to decide on a location, and I would like to remind folks that we moved over here from Seton a year ago, and we were all thrilled with this room, and I'm still thrilled with it, and we can rearrange the furniture however we like, and it's free, so I just, and it's available, and I just wanted to,
Didn't we have you looking into?
Yeah, I actually did contact, I actually know the person that does PR for the Half Bay Brewing Company, and so I contacted them because of that event center. And whoever, I can't remember the gal's name, but she emailed me back right away and basically said, we actually would love to be able to work with you, except for we have a wedding scheduled for that day. And I'm gonna, I think going in, that Saturdays in particular are probably difficult, especially since available venues within the area, there's not that many. So, I mean, I'm happy to continue the search, but with kind of like no budget and then theoretically competing against weddings on a Saturday, I don't know how successful that we would actually be.
Well, let me retract one of my previous statements. I had the idea in my mind, just from if you've been to any of these corporate retreat sorts of things, that you kind of want to be in a different environment so that people are relating in sort of a different fashion, which should lead to creativity, blah, blah, blah. The problem is that this is still a public meeting, and we still have Supervisor Horsley coming, et cetera, so unless anybody is...
and the public.
Yeah, exactly, against it, I guess this would be fine, if you could bring the couches.
No couches.
Hey, there was a couch dumped on
No
the ground in
couches.
California, and then
You don't like couches?
Not at this meeting, it's not appropriate. I mean, what, are you gonna have the public sitting in?
What color?
Wait,
chairs?
no, don't go here, don't go here. I'm just saying that I'm retracting that, we're not gonna argue about it, I'm retracting that. You have offered this space, and I think we'll be okay with this space if everyone else agrees.
I think this white space
And it's
is
free.
perfect.
you can bring your own bean board.
I don't,
Yeah.
So you're okay with it?
I'm neutral.
Okay, so
We're not bored with this space.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Yeah, for us, it's still
Board.
very exciting.
The new board isn't bored.
Okay, so I'll just pretend I never said anything.
All right, so we're gonna have a retreat here, and we can,
It's
you
a
have
great place for a
more
retreat.
ideas for agenda items, send them in an email, and, when I get an agenda put together, I'll send out a draft, yes?
Just one quick thing I wanted to follow up, because I wasn't a board member last year, but I do remember prior to us coming on that there was a letter that had come from the Dream Machines people, and the gentleman was requesting to be on the agenda, and I know that he, we had a full agenda, so it's that sort of been, I mean, are we waiting for him to get back to us, or is that something that we're trying to
He
accommodate?
did not get back to me. He wanted us basically to, I believe, now the details are gone, he wanted us to approve and give support to the Dream Machines, but he didn't have any of the details as to what would be happening, and so I invited him to come and make a presentation,
Okay.
but he did not get back in touch with me, so.
Okay.
I think part of that was the 1 versus 2 day thing, and they ended up scaling it down for financial reasons. So maybe it all became moot.
Resolved, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
I have a motion to adjourn.
One, just as I look at my
No.
minutes here, so we voted 6-0 to allocate the $300, but then in further
7-0.
Let's-
Somebody
7-0.
abstained.
Did somebody abstain?
I asked if anybody abstained,
Oh,
nobody said anything.
No, I think it was 7-0.
Okay, 7-0, but subsequently, we've decided to just go ahead and have it here.
No.
That's 2 different meetings. On the 22nd, the Parks meeting,
Oh, that's the
that's
Parks
the
meeting,
special
yeah.
venue meeting.
Okay.
And the retreat will be here.
Yep, got it.
And I'm sorry, what are the hours for the retreat again?
It starts at 9, Supervisor Horsley will be here at 9, County Council will be here at 11, and we haven't fleshed out the rest of the agenda. And since we're meeting here, there is no cutoff. So does anybody have a cutoff when they have to be done that day?
Depends on how
So
much
it
it's
depends
snowing in
on-
Tahoe.
Depends on what's on the agenda.
Okay, so start time is 9 a.m.
9 a.m., we know that.
I think it would be fair to Can it target a cutoff, like 1 PM? I don't know.
Use my agenda.
To me.
If we're talking about something that seems really useful, we'll keep going, and if not,
You know, we
I
could
think
all,
1 o'clock seems like a
One-ish?
reasonable.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I took the day off saying it was gonna be an all-day thing, so. If we end
can
early,
fill
just
it-
don't say anything.
Or we can go sit on those couches over at the brewery.
Yeah.
Go over to Mount Cosmo.
Well, make sure you get on a couch that day.
That's right, I'll have to bring my own.
Motion to adjourn?
You've got it, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
all right.
All right.
Thank you.